Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Long Gone Loser Rock Show. Today we're going to talk about this thing, my Marshall amp. Marshall amplifiers, they're a name that is synonymous with rock and roll. I remember the first time I started seeing music videos and Marshall was always there. You always saw the logo, you always saw the speaker boxes. Growing up with the 80s, you'd have these massive, wall of cabinets and you'd always see the name Marshall. It just made perfect sense. When it came to me playing guitar, it's actually an interesting story because I was actually a drummer before I was ever a guitar player. I drummed for like maybe 5.5 years and then I just decided to put the drums down. I got kind of bored with it because when you don't have a band really doing anything and you're just sitting at home drumming away without the technology that we have these days, you could tee up music and stuff and put it in headphones and play along and practice stuff like that. I didn't get any of that technology. All I had was a drum kit and a turntable. You're trying to play along to a record and the record's jumping because of all the drumming going on and whatever. So it kind of got boring, not jamming with a band. So I ended up changing to guitar because I really wanted to start writing my own songs. And so I taught myself how to play guitar. And the very first guitar I ever had was a guitar that was kind of like a Gretsch copy. I don't even remember the name of it. I bought it off a guy named Chris Carr. He was a singer of a band called Contrapunctus, who are a great band, really, really solid band. And he had this guitar, and I just liked it when I played it. I was just like, wow, this feels like a really nice guitar. So he sold it to me, and I love that guitar. I've used that guitar for many, many shows, but then stupidly, I was in a band, a hardcore punk band, and we did this massive show, and there was like tons and tons of people there. And in a adrenaline rush at the end of the show, I threw my guitar at the wall, and the neck snapped off it, and that's kind of like the end of that. I did get the neck repaired. Didn't really work as well as I wanted it to. After that, like you could never really actually fix the neck properly. So that was a bit of a bummer. And so that guitar's been retired. But I do want to like rebuild that guitar because I do like playing that guitar. It's actually a really nice guitar to play. So anyway, I used to borrow an amplifier off this guy named Kelly. Now, he used to run a record store in Adelaide called Thrash, Grind and Grunge with his brother Aaron. And they had a record label called Dominator Music. Anyway, I would watch him play live, and I remember talking to him about amplifiers and stuff, and that I was playing guitar in this band, and I wanted to know what sort of amplifier he had, because I would see his band play, and I was always blown away by the sheer power coming off the stage. On top of that, my favorite guitarist of all time, Blackie from the Hard-Ons, he always had a really good guitar tone, and I always wanted to know how he got that tone. And so when they were doing their farewell show in 1994 at the synagogue in Adelaide, I filmed the whole show because I thought, well, I'm never going to see the Hard-Ons again. This is it. They're breaking up. So I grabbed the video camera, I went to the show, and I filmed the entire gig, it's an amazing show. It really is. For a farewell show, that was how I wanted to see the Hard-Ons go out. A flawless set, hit after hit. It was just amazing. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen the Hard-Ons do. And I've seen the Hard-Ons probably like 50 times. So, for me to say that, that's a big thing to say because they are like my favorite Australian band of all time. So anyway, they played this show at the synagogue. Now, what I did at the end of that show was I ran to the stage after they'd finished, and I jumped on the stage and I filmed Blackie's settings on his Marshall amplifier. And as I'm filming across here, I get to where it says JCM 800. And I was like, wow, so he plays this thing called JCM 800. So does Kelly. So I decided then I needed a JCM 800. That was the guitar amplifier I want. If I'm going to try and emulate the bands that I loved or the guitar players I enjoyed watching and hearing, I would needed the same amplifier. So I went to a store in Adelaide, Holden Hill Music, as they were called. I walked in and I said, hey, I want to get a JCM 800, and they just happened to have one there. And it was going actually quite cheap because the power switch, this light wouldn't come on. And they told me that. They said, oh, the light doesn't turn on. But it works fine. And so I plugged it in. I got it really cheap. It was really, really cheap, this amplifier. Like it was, under $1,000. It was just super cheap. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I plugged it in. I remember the first song I played on it in the store was Talk Dirty to Me by Poison. And this guy walks over to me and he says, do you just play some Poison? And I said, yeah, I love Poison. And he said, he goes, man, I haven't heard that song in years. Turns out this guy played in an Adelaide glam rock band called Plain Jane. But anyway, there we go. That's another story. But anyway, I bought the amplifier and I walked out of the store that day extremely happy that I now had a Marshall amplifier. But it was only the head. I then bought a speaker box, that not this one. I bought a really cheapy speaker box from Adelaide. This guy that used to make them in Adelaide, it was like $200 or something like that. I bought it off a guy who played in this other band, and he was getting rid of it because he was upgrading to one of these. So I used that speaker box for quite some time, and that speaker box now resides at. It's covered in leopard print. I covered it in leopard print. The cover here was changed to leopard print, and that amplifier speaker box now resides at the Gasometer here in Melbourne. So if you come into Melbourne and you don't have a speaker box, they have one there that you can borrow, and it was mine. So there you go. You're welcome. So then, after many years, I decided to upgrade to this beautiful thing. It's 100 watts. It's extremely loud and it's extremely heavy, so I can't actually lift it a lot of the time, especially right now. I can't be lifting anything, so I'm not lifting this amplifier at all. It's not an amplifier I like to carry around. This Marshall amplifier was born in 1981. It's when it came off the production line. It's got the date of production is on the inside of the amplifier. I didn't know what year it was when I bought it. I just bought it because it was a JCM 800. And yeah, these settings that it's on right now, this is Blackie's from the Hard On settings. He used the amplifier for his Nunchucker Superfly shows recently, and yeah, I decided to leave the settings on that because why not? Now to the guitar. This here is my Mosrite that I bought in Japan in 2019. I have done a separate video on this, but not on this channel. It's on the band's channel, but I'll go through some quick things with you now about it, because, you know, a lot of people ask me questions about this guitar all the time. So the guitar, when I bought it, was not that good. It was beaten up. It cost $500. I got it from Ishibashi Music in Shibuya. It just wasn't a good guitar. Like, it felt good when you played it, like, you know, like the action. Like, the action's really good on it. And as you can see, it's like super thin. Like, this neck is like super duper thin. The strings are so close to the neck, but it doesn't have a twang or anything like that. It actually sounds great. But when I first got it, it sucked. Like, nothing would stay in tune for any longer than one song. And I was kind of so frustrated with it. I was just sitting there going, oh man, I bought this back from Japan. Can't take it back. And yeah, so I thought, well, I'm going to have to fix it. I mean, the reason I bought the guitar was so I could mod the hell out of it and fix it. I've always liked Mosrite's thin design, and just everything about them is just cool. Like, they just look like a cool guitar. They're not a punk rock guitar at all, but I guess they are now because Johnny Ramone was playing one. But, you know, this is a surf guitar. Now, I always liked just the way they looked. And so to finally actually get to play one was like really, really cool. Like, I loved to actually play a real Mosrite. So when I was in Japan in 2019, I told my mum that I was going to be buying a guitar when we went over there. You know, we landed in Tokyo and we get to Shibuya and we go out for lunch or whatever and dinner. And then I said to my mum, I said, oh, can we go here? There's a record store here. I want to check it out. And so we went into this record store. 3 hours later, I leave that store with, you know, $200 worth of stuff or whatever. My mum was like a trooper. You know, she hung around for 3 hours in that store as I just scoured all the 7-inch singles and bought all this stuff. So I got to hand it to her. What a champion for sticking around. And then when we were leaving, right underneath Rico Fan, which is where I bought all these records, is Ishibashi Music. So I said to Mum, hey, can I go in here? Because there's a guitar I want to look at. And she said, yep, sure thing. So I went in there and I said to the guy, where's your Mosrites? And he goes, oh, they're over here. And they had this beautiful red one. It was immaculate. Like, it not even been breathed on. But it was worth too much money and I just couldn't afford it. But it looked awesome. So I was like, man, I really, really, really want to get a Mosrite. And this one was next to it. It was more than $500 if you're living in Japan. But being that, you know, you can do the tax-free thing, I got it really cheap. And so I got it home. It had a Mosley tremolo system on it, which just sucked. And it, you know, you'd lift it up and it would stay there. It wouldn't go back. So I was like, oh man, this has got to go. This is a crap system. It's old. It's, you know, not working very well. So I got rid of it. The first thing I did was I replaced the pickup. I put in a Seymour Duncan humbucker. It had one of these, but when I opened this up, the guitar sounded very weak, like it didn't have enough guts. So I thought, well, I'll put in a humbucker. So I bought a Seymour Duncan, like what Billy Joe has in his blue guitar, the same model. And I opened up the pickup and took this one out, and it fell apart in my hands, like it just crumbled. That's how old it is and how crap it was, and it just wasn't going to be usable. And then I got my friend Simon at 80s Guitars to put on this bridge and tail piece that I wanted, because I want to get rid of that Mosey thing. You know, obviously there's these holes here and whatever. I don't care. I've had people write in all caps lock messages to me telling me that I screwed up this guitar and how dare I do this to a Mosrite. Look, I'm going to say this again for the last time. I bought this guitar so that I could use it, not so that you could use it. So I don't know why you feel the need to hit your caps lock button and jump into my DMs or whatever and start abusing me over what I did to a Mosrite that I paid for with my own money. Why do you care? It's not like you're ever going to buy it off me. It's not like you're ever going to use it or ever play it. Why do you care? Seriously. Just be kind to people. Be good to people. If you don't like what I did to the guitar, scroll on to something else. Who cares? Because I don't. So I don't know whose mind you're trying to change, because I just don't care. I bought this guitar because I love the style of a Mosrite. It's thin, it's light, the neck is really thin. I don't play leads, I play fast punk rock, and this guitar is perfect for what I do. Capish? Cool. So yeah, so I changed the tuning keys. I put the same ones that Johnny Ramone has on. I just remember when I got it home, the first thing I did when I walked in the door after just being on a 10-hour flight from Japan was I put out a screwdriver and put it back together and cranked it up. And my mum, God bless her, you know, she was like, "Oh, you sure you want to do that now? Don't you want to get some sleep?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm going to just continue on and get this rocking." And yeah, I did. And so here we have it. This is my Mosrite. It sounds great. It's my number one guitar for the Thorazines. But my number one guitar for when I do recordings and stuff like that is I have a Gibson Flying V, and that thing has not been modded. It's still stock from when I bought it, and it sounds great, and it hardly ever needs to be retuned. I can do numerous gigs with it, staying in tune. I do full rehearsals with it, you know, where we'll play for like 6 hours straight doing a rehearsal or whatever. Doesn't fall out of tune. It's a really nice Gibson. Very, very happy with that guitar. I just find that this one's a lot better to play really fast live stuff with. So, you know, you can do the downstroke Johnny thing, like, and yeah, it's just a beautiful guitar. I love this one. Here's a cool story for you. When I went to Japan last year, I ended up meeting up with the woman who still runs Mosrite Japan. I actually got to go and meet up with her and hang out with her and talk to her about guitars and stuff and hear her stories about the Ramones. So she gave me this cool sticker. Her name is Yuki, and she is a champion. She's a very lovely woman. Mosrite Japan was in her family, and now it's been passed on to her. And it's really cool because she gave me some photos of like CJ Ramone playing and Richie Ramone playing, and that's really cool. I told her about this guitar that I had. She was very thankful that I bought a Mosrite from Japan. She gave me this cool thing, which is an advertisement of Johnny Ramone holding the official signature Mosrite that they put out in Japan. When I went to Japan in 2006, we went to the Guitar Street in Tokyo there, and I saw the guitar there for sale. Now, this is on the first day that we arrived, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, do I blow all my money and just buy this one guitar and have nothing for the rest of the trip, or do I see how I go and hopefully still have money at the end to buy this guitar? I didn't buy that guitar then. I should have bought it, and I didn't. One big regret, but you know, whatever, who cares. She also gave me this really cool photo of the blue model that they did, because for those who don't know, Johnny also had a blue Mosrite that he used in the early days before he changed over to his signature white one. But to sit down with her and talk to her about Mosrite guitars and tell her how much I love them, I love the design, I love the sleek, thin design and whatever, it was a bit of a thrill. Like, it was really cool to hear her stories as well, her Ramones stories and stuff like that. So to be invited out to Mosrite Japan, that was just awesome. They don't actually have a factory anymore, so they make like 1 or 2 guitars a month, and they're all handmade from scratch. So it's just insane to think, and they cost quite a bit, but they're all handmade. They're not factory produced. So yeah, pretty crazy. But anyway, that's my trip with Mosrite Guitars. That's my trip with my amplifier. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this interested some of yous. What gear do you guys use to get your guitar sounds? I'm a gear nerd, so whatever you're using, by all means, share it with me. I'd be stoked to hear it. Oh, and if you're wondering what pedal Blackie uses on the hard-ons, it's a Boss Heavy Metal pedal, and this is set to his settings. So if you want to know what his settings are, there you go. Cool. I'll see you in the next video. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, go buy a guitar, and start a punk rock band. Bye-bye.